Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, March 25th, 2023. This week we had a great set of shows with great topics and, of course, great guests. We kicked off the week with a look at how estate planning is still an underrepresented financial planning tool. Let's take a look.
You know, we do this study every year because we think it's so important that people have a will and have documents, you know, for end of life. And frankly, we're frustrated that more people don't. And so doing this survey is to check out how's it going, and also to continually remind people this is such an important thing. The emphasis this year was on, because inflation is such an important part of what's going on in our economy these days, was, among other things, we wanted to test how, you know, what are the effects of inflation. And what we found is that inflation definitely had people thinking more about their finances, about their financial future, and therefore more people thinking, yes, I do need to get a will in place. But we're still frustrated by the amount of people that have them and the reasons. You know, it's one of those things that you do once or twice in your life, so you're not well educated for it, so it's kind of easy to push off. And in fact, of those people that don't have them, 42% tell us it's because they're procrastinating, which, you know, I get. It's just something, you know, like you can always do tomorrow, and, you know, it keeps being tomorrow. About a third of the people say they don't do it because they don't have enough assets, which, you know, many people don't really understand that you don't need to have that many assets to make it sensible to have a will, especially if you want to dictate how those assets are distributed after your death, and if you want to make it easier for whoever you're leaving them to access it and figure out what needs to happen with them. And then, you know, 15% say they don't have the expertise, and 14% say they can't afford it. You know, you add all that up, and I mean, it happens to add to more than 100% because we let people give more than one answer, but it's just, you know, there's so many reasons not to put it in place. Yeah, and that speaks to the number two reason that people who have a will put one in place, which is they've just lost a loved one, and they're typically going through it themselves, having to figure out what to do with the assets of that loved one, how to access them, how to get it through probate, how to figure out who gets what, and that's when they say, oh boy, I don't want to do that to my heirs, and I actually want to make sure that I can help determine what happens with them. So, you know, when we ask people who have a will, what made you put that in place? 28% cite retirement, 26% the death of a loved one, which I was just talking about, and 22% talk about, you know, their kids. They started to expand their family and said it's time. Well, as you'd expect, as people age, as you move up in age group, a greater percentage have a will. So for instance, the 18 to 34-year-old group, which surprisingly this year has picked up, 26% of them have a will. And the next group, 35 to 54, only slightly beats them with 27%. And then a much bigger group have it, you know, at the older ages, such that in total, 1 in 3 people has one. But still, you know, not enough. And in fact, one of the things we're doing at caring.com is we're offering this year a benefit that we will provide people with the services to get a will. And I'm curious to see how it goes, and that'll be something we can talk about in a year.
And we also discuss the ins and outs of required minimum distributions. Let's take a look.
Well, there is something new to discuss because of Secure Act 2.0, but let's just talk about the basics first, I think, Jeff, right? Which is, what are they, right? And required minimum distributions are generally the minimum amount of money that you must be withdrawn from certain types of retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks and 403bs and 457 plans. So that's what RMDs apply to, is retirement accounts that an individual may own. Well, it's changed. It was 70.5, and then it moved to 72. And that was generally for people who reached the age of 72 after December 31st, 2019. And if you had reached age 70.5 prior to January 1st of 2020, you had to take your RMD starting at age 70.5. By the way, Jeff, that April 1 date is for your first RMD. So the year in which you first become eligible or required to take RMDs, you can either take it by December 31st, or in the first year of your RMD, take it up through April 1. After that, it's December 31st. And if you miss that deadline, there's a severe penalty of 50% of the amount that you should have withdrawn is the penalty amount, in addition to the amount that you should take.
Yeah.
Thankfully, because of Secure Act 2.0, that penalty is being reduced from 50% to 10%. And so at least, and that's starting this year, that's one of the 100 provisions that were in the Secure Act 2.0 that at least makes it more favorable. Now, one thing about that 50% penalty, I'm told that very few people actually ever paid that penalty because they were able to argue that this or that happened, and that was the reason why they missed their RMD. But for most people, age 72, starting this year, if you turn 72 this year, your RMD begins in age 73 next year, 2024, and you're not required to take an RMD this year if you're turned 72 this year. So
Yeah.
interesting little thing that people need to sort of be conscious of. You don't need to take it, which creates an interesting planning opportunity for some people, I think, Jeff. I think it's a great thing, and you think back to how the RMD is calculated. You take a look at what your account balance is on the year prior and what your life expectancy is, and then and there's a calculation that's made to calculate how much your RMD should be. And so if you have a longer life expectancy and it's being delayed, in essence, what you're doing is allowing people to have more money at the end of their life expectancy, given the way it's calculated. Of course, all of that depends on what your balance is in your IRA. But, there are many times when people end up with more money in their IRA retirement accounts at the end of their life expectancy than when they started, which is kind of interesting. So you're creating an opportunity for people to perhaps improve their standard of living late in life. Well, your money is probably being housed at a custodian like Fidelity or TD or Schwab or whatever, Merrill Lynch or wherever it might be. And oftentimes what people have is their RMD set on automatic to be released certain date, November or so. Generally, I would recommend that, but also work with an advisor to make sure that's the right RMD. Generally, it won't be wrong. And I would generally make sure that if you don't have it set up on automatic, don't wait till mid-December to take your RMD, because that's when these custodians are overwhelmed with requests for RMDs. And there's a possibility that the RMD could be sent after December 31st. So I would say, my personal preference would be to set it up on automatic with your custodian. Many people are trying to create a paycheck in retirement. So what you could do is to set up your RMD so it's being distributed monthly or quarterly or annually. But if what you want to do is to have income throughout the year, I'd say quarterly or monthly would be a good thing to do.
Well, we're halfway through a look at our best segments for the week. When we come back, we'll take a look at the other half. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeffrey Snyder, and this is your BRN Retirement Update. The number of non-traditional gig workers has increased steadily over the past several years, providing greater flexibility and greater income opportunities. But retirement savings has been significantly lagging behind without access to workplace retirement savings plans.
The evidence points to a growing segment of the workforce. So But even the SECURE 2.0 didn't really deal directly with the access issue. I think that's one of the failings of the SECURE 2.0 legislation. It didn't really provide for the federal equivalent of a state auto IRA or other, similar kind of mechanisms. So, access in general is still a problem. It's particularly acute with non-traditional workers, but there are some provisions in SECURE 2.0 that could be helpful.
While this group has access to IRAs and similar accounts, it still lacks the contribution rates and greater savings opportunities with employer workplace retirement savings plans. This will still have to be fleshed out in future legislation. With your retirement update, I'm Jeffrey Snyder of the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We also explored how proper dental hygiene can improve your overall health and reduce cost. Let's take a look.
Having a really good start to preventative, ideally preventing things like cavities and gum disease, starts with really good home care, because as you're stating facts, it can be financially very cumbersome for things left untreated for whatever reason. People do not go to the dentist usually out of fear and sometimes financial reasons, but usually more from an anxiety point of view. It's definitely a good thing to look into your health insurance, including your dental insurance options through work. Also, usually they do have some kind of option that you can purchase for a little bit less. Having yourself going in for a couple of visits each year just for cleanings is really important, not only for the cleaning aspect, but also the information that you're getting back and that you may not know otherwise. Cavities, pain, anything associated with things like cavities, and even gum disease can be completely silent. So that is one of the really important keys to addressing these things much sooner before they become a very expensive financial burden potentially. A lot of the patients that I have that have dental anxiety state that they have either usually they've had some kind of pain or negative experience associated with a previous dental experience, and they carry that through their life, whether it is in childhood or adulthood. I would say that is the primary cause that we see at our office. We do, fortunately, our office does focus on sedation dentistry because we do know of the need for this population of people to get themselves into the dentist. Sometimes the only way they will find themselves able to mentally take this on is knowing that they have options to calm their minds and calm the pain, which can help to start the new process of hopefully lessening the anxiety to a degree where they will start to come in a little more frequently. With regards to how we approach dentistry from all aspects, whether it's cleaning, restoratives like filling cavities, it is really important to address the mental aspect inside everybody's head, because everybody does come with a different set of experiences. I always keep in mind that I'm addressing every patient as I hope I would be addressing the situation. And it's a very vulnerable position that patients are in when they're coming in here for anything that they may be. So we do have techniques to help keep minds at ease, just simple things as far as location and how and where we place like the anesthetic prior to making patients numb, how we speak to patients, questions that we ask or don't ask. There are devices also that can be used to help the patient's comfort level mentally too, along with things like nitrous sedation, IV sedation. So there are lots of things at different levels that we can do to address the overall comfort of our patients. Again, we want them to be able to come in, and chasing them off with a cool demeanor and heavy-handed dentistry is going to keep patients away for sure.
And finally, food prices, especially eggs, continue to rise. Let's take a look.
Well, I think if we looked at the data would suggest that this rate of inflation that we've had going on is slowing. So, whether that's because the reason we had inflation and it has jumped up and there's not that pressure to keep it jumping up, or, certainly actions of the Fed to try to tamp down inflation are probably having some effect also. But, I think one of the things that's important to remember in when we think about the stuff that the Fed does, inflation's not a good thing to have in your economy, and you really want to try to stop that. But there are big time lags in this. So the Fed takes action to raise rates, yet the effects of those aren't necessarily felt for some time. And so it's raising rates is sort of in some ways a fairly crude instrument to try to get accomplished what you're trying to accomplish. So we're still in this time lag period, I think, of seeing the effects of that take hold. And the data that came out that went into the consumer price index, really our measure of inflation, the kind of that headline number, eggs dropped 60 cents per dozen. They went from 482 to 421. Now, 421, that's a high price for eggs, I think, as we think about historically. It's probably the third highest on record in nominal terms after the last 2 months. But that's one of those items that's kind of moving in the right direction in terms of falling prices. The level is high, but it's coming down, and it's coming down because really, egg producers are responding to high prices, and really responding to the avian influenza that they're hoping has run its course and will end. And so we're seeing egg production increase. But we're also seeing people change their behavior. They're buying fewer eggs, which leads to lower prices. Both of those, in fact, lead to lower prices. And I expect that egg prices are going to continue to come down based on what we see in the wholesale market, where egg prices continue to fall. One of the interesting trends, we see these trends in food where, as an economist, in terms of demand, we might call that tastes and preferences of all of us are changing. And one of the ways that has changed, I would say, over the last number of years is this desire to increase the amount of protein in our diets. And eggs is a great source of that. It can be a substitute for meat. It has long been an inexpensive substitute, right? So if you were really on a budget, if we're really constrained, eggs are a substitute there. And now we see eggs have gone up much faster than meat, in fact. And so relative prices would suggest a lot of our meat items are actually cheaper, relatively less expensive than eggs are. And so, I think it certainly takes its toll from a desire to get more protein in our diet. It does make one of those, kind of basic items that we buy much more expensive. In this atmosphere that we have of rising rates, I think we find that we find a bunch of people, these banks, really getting caught on the wrong end of this, right? Where they had a lot of money in bonds or T-bills or whatever that were relatively low rates. And so as interest rates go up, those bond values go down. And so on paper, they got a bunch of losses if we look at the books, which really, it doesn't matter unless somebody can force your hand, right? and create a run on the bank, which is what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. I always think of, It's a Wonderful Life. You see a bank run, that's what this is. This is a bank run that was created by some folks who took all their money out and demanded all their money, and they didn't have the liquid reserves to do it. And the more you try to sell those bonds that they had holding, those assets that are declining in value, you're in a real bind. And so, we've got a bunch of banks like that are facing that same vulnerability.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Well, visit our website. And of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN Sunday. I'll be joined by members of the media, academia, financial services, and government as we analyze and break down all the news and events for the week. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.